We have to talk about this. So let's go ahead and jump into Tesla. So Tesla was the big focus, in my opinion, out of everything that was reported today. We had the FOMC rate decision. The Federal Reserve decided to pause interest rate cuts. I'm going to come back to that, right? So they decided to not raise interest rates, to not cut them, but to pause. So there's nothing that's going on with interest rates, which technically is not better for the economy. It's just as expensive as it was to borrow money. And then the second thing is big tech reported earnings: Meta, Microsoft, and Tesla. Tesla was the wild one because both Meta did report earnings, exceeded expectation, and earned the rally. That doesn't really surprise me, right? I did end up trading Meta, and as you guys could see, I closed out my entire trade. I made $5,900 on this given trade. Great. The other one was Microsoft. I also ended up trading Microsoft. I didn't do too well. I only walked away with $439. I closed out this trade as well. I was setting up for a short, but I got impatient and I ended up actually shorting Meta. I did end up shorting Meta on the retracement, and that's where, realistically, I should have just stuck with this one because it ended up selling off an additional 4%. So you can see from overall highs to lows, that was a 3.78% sell-off. Nonetheless, happy with it, somewhat in the green, great. Tesla was, if you guys actually paid attention to Microsoft's earnings, Microsoft exceeded expectation. Their guidance might have been a little bit lower. Their cloud-based servers revenue was a little bit lower, but it was just like line items that didn't come up, didn't meet expectation. Microsoft is not the one that's super inflated. If you look at Microsoft's performance, it's bullish, but it's been nothing crazy. This is Tesla. Now, Tesla went from $200 per share all the way to highs of $488 just because Elon joined the Trump administration. That's all. Fundamentally, nothing changed about Tesla. And if you guys pay attention to what Tesla reported, it was not good. Like I showed it on my Instagram. Tesla literally missed on almost every single line item, year over year or growth. It missed. Earnings per share came in at 73 cents versus 76 cents, lower than what was expected. Revenue, expectation was $27.23 billion. Revenue came in at $25.71 billion. On top of that, the way that Tesla was able to even bring up an additional $600 million in revenue was that they were able to use this new form of accounting with their Bitcoin holdings. How BS is that? We're talking about $1 trillion company, but hey, right? Let's not even focus too much on that, right? Let's focus on why it missed. So if we quickly highlight the reason, originally the market sold off, right? So we talked about how inflated Tesla was or is. If we look at the 1 minute time frame and the movement today, during today's live session, when we went live and I actively saw Tesla sell off, I bought into the dip. Added more as direction became favorable, and then took profits. And then all of a sudden it began to skyrocket. And then I began to short, and I shorted it into the moving average, covered, ripped up, short, and then ended up having a cover right before the market closed. $6,700 is what I made shorting Tesla or trading Tesla today. But the part that just baffles me is Meta and Microsoft could have earned its green dates, especially Microsoft. But Microsoft is down 4% because it doesn't have the Elon Musk hype. Tesla reported terrible earnings. The only reason that it's up, let me explain. The reason Tesla is up is because Elon talked about two things. Talked about their Optimus robot, which he talks about all the time. It's nothing new. And it says, it's going to make Tesla a $10 trillion company itself just with the Optimus robot. Elon has always said that. He said that literally 4 years ago when he first announced the Optimus robot. He specifically said during one of his robo-taxi events of, hey, people don't understand how valuable these Optimus robots are. I think that once the world figures that out, they're going to have to recalculate how GDP is calculated. And I think that the Optimus robot will be the reason Tesla exceeds a $5 trillion market cap, is what he said back then. I remember it because I was so amazed. That was over 4 years ago, bro. Now you're telling me that's one of the reasons that we saw a huge push. On top of that, he also announced the new thing. He announced that I think in June of this year, there's going to be in Austin, Texas, full self-driving vehicles, no person needed in that. Okay, that's progress. That's a nice surprise. That doesn't change anything fundamentally about the company. Supposedly there's going to be a cheaper model that's finally going to be released in 2025. It's not like we've ever, been set with these expectations and then he doesn't end up delivering. The part that just baffles me about all of this is that, we're talking about a business that sells vehicles. And when we see what they are selling, right, with all of their price drops, because like myself, I own 2 Teslas. I own a Tesla Cybertruck and a Tesla Model X Plaid. With all of that, we know firsthand, if you own a Tesla, how hard the depreciation hits you when you buy a brand new Tesla. Because Elon is notorious for continuously slashing the prices after you buy a Tesla. The part that baffles me about all of this is, even with all of that, with all the price slashes, one thing that became very obvious is that their profit margins are slimming down. And even with all those incentives of slashing down the prices, they expect when their revenue and earnings per share is down, they expect all of a sudden that things are going to get better for them in 2025. The part that I wanted to bring you back to was, what did we have today? We had an FOMC rate decision. Did they decide to lower interest rates so it's less expensive for people to borrow money? No, right? They did. I have to show you one of my other trades. SOUN ended up closing 12.6K on the day, position fully closed, no open short. And then on MSTR, I only made $1,000 on this one. Again, position fully closed. This one's up about 1.27%. So I'm pumped. I'm motivated and I'm ready for tomorrow. I had an incredible day. I think overall I'm up over $26,000 on the day, which is not an average day for me. With all of my trades on SOUN, MSTR, Tesla, Meta, Microsoft, I feel like I'm very proud of myself, of making my money and bouncing. The part that just baffles me, the part that I just couldn't get my head around is, even with all of this hype that we already experienced with Tesla itself, fundamentally, it reported a terrible earnings. But because Elon said something that brings hope, it doesn't change anything. Like, you can see that their sales, their revenue, their profit margins are down. And then we just think it's going to change in 2025 when interest rates are not expected to drop more than what was expected. It's like, come on, right? But hey, let the pump keep pumping. Let this thing keep pushing up, or at least trying to. We all know one thing, Tesla's very volatile for a reason. So the opportunity will present itself. And I might end up having to shift my focus. I would love to potentially short Tesla down to lows of $300. Because again, if you've ever paid attention to Tesla, you know that it's notorious for being extremely volatile. It's not there yet. It's still incredibly bullish, but there's huge downside potential. I think that it could return back to $200 per share, easy. But I think that there needs to be a trigger. I think that there needs to be a specific reason on why it begins to experience, some form of break of support at 350 and then begin to actively sell off. There's huge downside potential. There's 2 sides to every opportunity. The hype can continue and this thing can continue to push up just because it's Elon, and trust me, I'm a big fan myself. But nonetheless, let's be realistic. The hype is fading. Reality should sink in, but we have to give it time. Staying patient, staying calculated. I'm going to set my alerts and I'll short it once I get that confirmation, but then I would love to buy the dip into Tesla and go long on it. Again, it's being able to point out the obvious. It's not rocket science what I'm pointing out. I'm not trying to predict the future. No one can. I'm just obviously pointing out on the larger time frames that, hey, Tesla is overbought. Fundamentals are not there. Hype is definitely there and hope is definitely there. But based off of what we have projected for 2025, unless Elon pulls something out of left field, then it's just a matter of time for it to correct itself. A lot of people say never bet against Elon. People have made millions of dollars betting against Elon, meaning that there's so many times, if you look at Tesla's history, so many times it literally almost feels unstoppable on how much Tesla's selling off. It's an extremely volatile stock for a reason. It aggressively goes up and then it aggressively goes down. So please just make sure that you do your part in taking profits when it makes sense to you. I'm not saying you have to do it now. You're an adult. You can do whatever it is that you want, but I wish you nothing but the best. Just wanted to talk about both sides. I wanted to talk about the surprise that obviously Tesla with lower and worse than expected earnings is still in the green, yet Microsoft blew it in comparison out of the water and ended up being in the red. But that's just the market for you. So excited to see what the market presents tomorrow. I hope to see you for tomorrow's live trading session. I trade live every single morning right at market open for about 30 minutes to an hour. If you ever want to tune on in, it's just the second link in the description down below. I appreciate your time. Like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take care, team.